You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey, glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your host, Keith Wheeler.
And Nuria Corby.
And what are we talking about today, Nuria?
Today, we're going to talk about prices. And by that, I mean how to justify your prices. I've had a lot of questions about that subject recently. Do you get that, Keith?
I do. A lot of people are asking, with all the competition that's out there, do I price them really, really low, or how do I justify having a book that's more expensive than the competition or the other books on the market? And so, I definitely get those questions quite a bit.
Yeah. And it's an important question, really. And I think everybody has different ideas about it as well. So I think knowing what we're like, I think we're probably roughly the same on this.
Probably.
But, there's different ways you can price your books, really. And in my case, I always say to people, people don't go on Amazon to buy cheap books. They go on Amazon to buy books that they like. And if they like a book, they will pay a decent price for it. So I always try to set my royalties so that I make at least $3 on each book. And unless it's a notebook, I'm happy with making $1 on it. But you have to bear in mind different things, So how do you normally price your books, Keith?
I'm about the same. I do between $2.50 and $3 per book.
Yeah.
Again, except for the notebooks and things like that.
Yeah.
The people that go to Amazon to buy are not the people that are going to dollar stores to buy.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah.
And so, I've personally never had that mindset to where I just want to price it low, and I mean, I could see maybe if you're just starting out and you want to do that to get those early reviews, maybe, because that's something that I've seen other people teach over the years, price them really low until you start getting reviews and then you can up the price. I can kind of see that. The problem is whenever you price your product low, you're devaluing it, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
You're bringing down the time, effort, and energy that you put into that book.
Yeah.
And so if I put, if I sell this book and I sell it where I'm making zero profit or very little profit, then it's shown that I don't value the time that I put into it. And people might be buying it, but at what cost? What benefit has it had for me, and for my business? Because again, this is a business, right? That's the goal. And so I've never had that mindset where I want to price it really, really low.
I'm absolutely agreeing with you here, because also I think that, like you said, I mean, the people that buy on Amazon, they're not the people that buy off dollar store. And I get that as well with people when they say, well, why should I price my notebook at $7.99 when I can buy it in the dollar store? But I always say to them, well, it's not the same as the book in the dollar store. It depends what kind of books you make. If you're making books that you can buy in a dollar store, then of course you're not going to sell them on Amazon. But there has to be something special about your books. There has to be there has to be a theme to your covers or a particular niche that people really want to buy, something that you can't get elsewhere, So when you do it like that, you can actually put any price on your book and you will still get someone buying, because they can't find that book with that idea anywhere else, Especially I find that with gift books, for example. If you buy a book that's something that I don't know, I can't think of an example at the moment, but something, here in the UK, we give a lot of greetings cards to people on their birthday, at Christmas, when they pass an exam, all those sort of things. And you can make notebooks that have the same idea in mind, that you can give as a gift to congratulate someone on passing their exam or welcoming them in their new home, something like that. And if you find a really good and really funny quote or something like that nobody else has, people will pay over the odds to buy that. But it's also about, making the kind of books that, first of all, if you're making the same books, like I said earlier, that are already on Amazon, they will buy the cheaper version of it, So that's why I always say you have to make books that are different. Don't make what's already on there. Because if yours is different, what price are they comparing it with? If that book doesn't exist on Amazon, or there's nothing similar on Amazon, then you can't really compare prices. If it's just a notebook, yes, you can compare that, but that's why your books have to be different. I think, there's so many ways to approach it, and everybody will have a different view on it. And like you said, some people teach, price your books lower to begin with so that you get those initial sales. And I guess that's a valid way to do it. I just can't bring myself to do that because of the work that goes into my books. And then I think, no, I can't price it too low. Then it's not worth making, Yeah. And I think that's where you stand roughly as well. But yeah, that doesn't mean that it wouldn't work any other way. I think the great thing about KDP and making low content books and books in general is about experimenting and seeing what works for you. So I can't say I have experimented much with the prices. I've stuck to that idea that I just said. But have you had much experimenting with prices in your business? Or
I have, because I do a wide variety of books, book types. I do the no content, low content books. I do children's books. I've got young adult novels. And so, I've played around with the pricing structure. And I bought in early on into some of those suggestions where, price it really low until you get reviews. But what I found is when I priced it low, I wasn't really getting any more sales.
No,
because again, it's a different type of buyer that's on Amazon typically than at your dollar store. I mean, one of the questions that you brought up was, how do I compete with the prices at the book at a dollar store? Is your book at that dollar store? Then you don't need to compete with it.
Exactly.
Your book is on Amazon. So first of all, I say you don't even consider the ones that are at dollar stores and places like that. Look at the ones in your niche. And whenever someone asks me, how do I price my book? How do you suggest? I tell them, go in, look at your niche, look at the top 10, 20 books that are selling, based on the BSR, then look at those and see what they're priced at. Also look at their page length, because if they're priced lower, but they're shorter books, then that's not really a good comparison. But one thing to keep in mind is that Amazon will drop the price of your book periodically. I have my young adult novel, which is 75,000 words. I normally sell at $12.99, which isn't super expensive, but that's what I did. And right now you can get it on Amazon for like less than $4 US. And I still get my profits, my royalties from my price. So Amazon made that decision on their own. They're eating the difference, not me. So again, there's no justification for me to put it down that low, because like I said, it's not that I see more sales or anything like that. So I just, I put too much time and effort into those books. Also, one thing that I talked about was comparing it to the other books in your niche. If everybody has this mindset of putting your book down low, then no one's helping anybody.
No.
If everybody kind of just tweaks their mindset and says, let me price this at what it's valued at, what value it brings to the reader. And if you really think that your book doesn't bring a lot of value to the user, then why are you selling it? Why did you create it? But if you do think it's bringing value, then price it that way. Because if you price it that way, then other people can start pricing that way. And then everybody starts making, a decent amount of money, instead of, I see so many people who are like, I've got, 2,000 books out there and I'm making less than $200 a month. in royalties, and it just blows my mind. I'm like, I get that not everything is going to sell, but all the time and energy and effort and products that you bought to streamline your business and everything else, and you're not making, you're not making what you deserve to be making.
Yeah. I think that is such a good example. And I think that's because people tend to make books that are already on Amazon. I keep repeating that because that is the whole, it's, there are people who teach how to make low content books or any books, and people copy that. They copy, they'll have a look and see, okay, let's see what niches there are. They go on Amazon, they see what other people are doing, and they'll copy not the same book, but they'll copy the idea. They make a similar book, and that's not going to outsell an established book. I mean, I'm in a niche, which I'm not going to say what it is, obviously. And it's all I can say is it's a niche that is about somebody's hobby. And that hobby is something, it's not that well known. It's not a huge hobby, but it's something that people buy books for. And I'm quite established. My brand, I've got a brand in that niche, is quite established in that niche. And my books, I price them at $15.99, $16.99, which is quite high for a low content book. And then Amazon, this is what you were saying earlier, Amazon then reduces the price of those books, and they're usually at $12.99, but I still get that royalty that I said. So, and even when Amazon doesn't put the price down, they still sell, because people want to buy those type of books. There's no other book like it because they're quite difficult to make, and a lot of people don't know how to make it in the right way so that it appeals to the people who are using it. And that's what you need to find. You need to find a niche that it might be a saturated niche, but if your book is made in a way that people really love it and really think yours is the best one of those, then you can set the price higher, definitely. And that's what people buy. If I, on the other hand, made it really cheap, I think people would think, what's wrong with it then? Why is it so cheap when all the other books are, set at a certain price? So it really depends. I don't think there's a formula that you can apply to all books, but I wish that people would kind of think of it less as a race to the bottom price-wise.
Right.
Because that's what happened in my previous business when I was selling jewelry. Everybody on eBay, for example, was using the same supplier of jewelry. So our jewelry was all the same. Every seller had the same jewelry. So what used to happen, we used to make it a bit cheaper than the others to be competitive. And then if one person lowered their prices, all the other people started lowering their prices. And it got to a point where the prices went lower and lower and lower. And in the end, it just wasn't worth selling that anymore,
Right.
And that can happen with books as well. It really is a fine line between, pricing your book in a way that you still make a profit and it's worth it for you, and pricing it at a price where people still want to buy it. And then it really comes down to what your book is like. What is it? Good quality? Is it about a subject that there aren't many books out there in that way? It could be a saturated niche, but as long as your book is different to all the other books, it still sells. That's the way I think of it. But there's different opinions on it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've seen so many people that, especially that are knocking out like a bunch of books, a day or a week or a month, and they are doing kind of what you said, where they're looking at competitors that are out there. Sometimes they're making exactly the same thing.
They do that to me.
Like, yeah. Well, and that's one reason why if you were to look up any of my books online, you'll see that on Amazon, you'll see that they probably have, bad BSRs because I don't promote to them, because I've had so many people copy my stuff, once you have a following, especially in a niche like ours, where they're people that are writing books and interested in creating books, then they see, okay, well, Keith's got this kind of book out and it's it's doing well, I'll just do what he did. And so, yeah, so, you know, that's the joy in pen names. But,
Mhm.
but yeah, I've seen people just copy it and then get upset when either they lose their KDP account or they you know, they're not seeing the same sales or whatever. And it's like, because you're trying to compete literally, you know, one-to-one relationship with something that's already out there, something that already has reviews, something that already has information in the algorithm. Even if they don't have reviews, behind the scenes, Amazon still knows something about this book, this product. And so you always want to make something yours and make it unique, make it different. And I don't just mean take something, make it the same interior but a different cover. I'm talking about the interior too. You know, make things different, because that's what you're, I mean, even if you do get the occasional sale here and there, that's not going to put food on the table on a long-term basis. You know, you want something, most people want something that's going to be, you know, passive and that's going to benefit them in the long run. And the only way to do that is to put out good quality content and price it accordingly. You know, when it comes to, I agree that there's not really one size fits all, but the one generic, you know, suggestion I give is one that I said earlier about how to kind of find a price. And I usually say you don't want to be the least expensive one in that group. I always say go more towards the mid to upper mid, and then once you do get more reviews and stuff, then you could be at the topper tier. You know, then you can raise your price. Because the good thing about pricing, it's one of the things in KDP and other print on demand platforms that you can adjust. You can change it. You know, you can change it from, you know, you can't change your title or your subtitle or anything that's tied to your ISBN, but when it comes to your pricing, you can change it. So, you know, that's the other thing I see people do is they don't, you know, they'll get a seller and then they're afraid to change the pricing. You know, if you get more reviews and you're getting, you know, consistent sales, and you again look at the other people in your niche and see, you know, where their prices are, and maybe increase yours another $1, you know, and again, just test it out, see how that works.
Definitely. I think that's a really good point. And I tend to do the same. I kind of find, I see what my competitors are doing, and then I definitely don't put my prices as the cheapest in that niche, but I kind of find a middle ground. Or I go high, depending how good I think my book is compared to the others.
The value, right.
Exactly. Yes, well, we've all done it as well. I think we've all started out making low content books especially, and had a look on Amazon. How do they make the titles? How do they make this? What do they price them? And then we've all made books that are very similar to the other books already on Amazon. I know I did when I first started. I've got my first books are probably the same as lots and lots of other books on Amazon. And the way I really found out how to make it on Amazon KDP with low content books was when I started making different kinds of books. Then I started to notice that my sales were going up. And not only because I was selling more books, but also because my pricing was better. It was higher than with the other, with notebooks or with logbooks and all those kind of books that you make when you first start out. And I think that is the key, really. You know, you have to make completely different books, and that way you can also set your prices higher. And then if you want to make, you know, if you want to make lots of notebooks, and this is a different business model then. If you're making lots and lots and lots of books, you just churn them out and make them really cheap. Who knows, you might make some money, but I don't think you can make a full-time income that way. Would you say that?
I mean, I can't imagine that you would. I mean, unless you had tens of thousands, you know. And then at that point, you're just putting more noise out there, you know. And especially when, you know, KDP is really, and they do this periodically, where they really start what I call cleaning house, and they just you know, start saying, okay, we don't want all this stuff on our platform, and so I don't think that's a good use of people's time. I mean, I would much rather create far less products and make them more quality so I can make more money off of them,
Yeah.
than just churn out basically, cookie cutter versions of each other with a different cover.
Definitely. And I did that as well at the beginning. I know you said different covers. I did that as well. I did the same book with different colored covers,
Colored, yep.
because
I did that too.
yeah, we've all done it because we think of it as like when you go to a stationery shop, you've got a notebook or a journal or whatever, and it comes in different cover styles, with a floral cover, with an animal cover, with, and I thought at the beginning, I thought that is the way to do it. But I've since learned that it's not a stationery business. It's a
Right.
book business, So it's the interior, how what your book is about, how it helps people. Those are the things that really, the more it helps someone, the higher you can price it, I think. So there's just different ways of thinking about it.
Yeah. It's just a different business model, I think.
Yeah.
And honestly, that business model is not one that I have any interest in. The one that just knocks out tens of thousands of cookie cutter products.
Absolutely.
Getting back to pricing, it's, those are the ones that you have to price dirt cheap in order to justify, and then what are you making? Pennies off every one you make, and I mean, even if you sell, 100 of them, if you're making, 10 cents off each one, what was that worth?
Exactly.
$10. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
And they're the ones that you can find in the dollar store, so
Right.
you are then competing with them,
Right.
But as long as you're making your books very different and very, I keep saying the word unique, and we all talk about that, but it takes time to really understand what that means. I think when I first started this business, I didn't quite understand the concept of a unique book. I thought all of my books were unique because they were different to other books. But I think we really mean that they're different in concept as well as in design.
Right.
The interiors are different. They appeal to certain people who, it's depending on who your target audience is. Your book has to be made in a certain way, So I think once you start understanding that, then it all falls into place, and your pricing will depend on how much you understand that as well. So that you can build the business first and price it low, and the good thing is, the more you make books, the more you learn how to make them. Most people do anyway. And that's when you then finally learn to fine tune things like pricing, design, all those kind of things.
Right.
Yeah. But it comes in time.
It does. It comes in time and experience. And that's one thing that I'm hoping that the viewers and listeners get from this is, the good thing is there are enough of us out there that have been doing this for years that you don't have to have it be your experience, your findings. You can extrapolate what you want from what others have already done and learn from that. And so then you can, I hope that everybody listening, makes, $1,000 a month faster than I ever did, or $10,000 a month or whatever. And so I mean, I hope that for everybody. So it's, really just take this and I would say that if you've got multiple books out there and you're not making what you think you should be making based on, I mean, part of it is you have to do an honest, search of yourself and say, okay, how much effort did I really put into this? Do I really think I should be making $3 per book, or not, that's again, something that you can only answer yourself. But if you think you should be making more, then again, look at the competitors and consider upping the price of your books. Again, like I said before, the good thing is we can change the pricing. And so if you up the price of your book and in a month or two, you see your sales have tanked, put the price back, You know,
Yeah.
it's not rocket science, you know, but it is something that you'll never know unless you try. And so if you think honestly that the content you're putting out there is high quality, it stands out above the rest. I'm not just talking about a nice cover. I'm, you know, and even I'm not just talking about a nice interior. Like, is it useful? Because that's the other thing. I've seen people create these elaborate interiors, but they're not useful anymore. You know, the lines are being covered up.
Yeah.
You know, the font isn't readable or whatever,
Yeah.
but it looks cool, you know? And so, you know, you have to, you know, do that looking inside and saying, but if you think it's worth more, charge more.
Mm.
And because a lot of it, like you said earlier on, is if people see a lower price, they're going to think something's wrong with this one.
What's wrong with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's wrong with this compared to the others?
Mm.
You know? And so I would say if you're not priced at least in the middle of your competitors' pricing, that's the first thing I would do. Again, assuming that you put enough effort into it to where your book is worth it.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
even if you are at that, you know, you're in the middle somewhere, if you don't think you're making as much money that you should based on the effort you put in, consider upping it $1 and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many different ways of there's different strategies for pricing, and they're all valid because we're all different and we all have different books and we all have different situations. And that's why I said at the beginning, it's all about experimenting as well and seeing what works. I was lucky that my strategy worked, you know, from the beginning. I just, you know, thought, well, I don't want to make less than X amount.
Right.
And I stuck to that and it worked, you know. But if it doesn't work for you, by all means, experiment and see what else could work for you, you know, because it's all, there isn't, whatever we teach, there's usually more than one way of resolving it or doing it, or, you know, there's so many different ways, and you have to find the way that works for you and that you're comfortable with. And pricing is one of those things, you know. There's no one fits all size for pricing. Yeah.
And again, something that I kind of touched on earlier is also, if you've been doing this for a while and you haven't changed your prices, consider that, because, you know, back in, you know, 2016 when I first started, everybody's notebook was $6.99. You know, so if you created something and you charge $6.99 and you're still charging $6.99, especially after you know, the Amazon recently, or KDP recently, upped their prices, you know, consider upping yours, because, you know, now you might have been at the middle of the competition then, but now you might be more towards the bottom because everybody else is moving their prices up.
Yeah, I've actually just changed my prices for that reason. Not on every book, but I mean, this is something that people are probably interested in because of the printing price change, you know. And just in case anybody wants to know, the way I've dealt with it is that I've increased the books that needed to be increased, you know, and that's by no means all of my books.
Right.
It's just the ones that are selling well, and I thought they can do with a bit of a hike, because my earnings did go down after the 20th. So hopefully that will have fixed it. But I didn't increase all of them, by no means. So you probably did the same as well.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and we can do a whole nother episode on that, but
definitely.
But, you know, one thing is I definitely strongly suggested to people not to click that button where it said up everything.
Yeah.
There's so many issues with that.
Is there?
You know,
I'm glad I didn't then.
the biggest issue is it basically, what it does is it makes it so that way your everything is going to increase. Your pricing is going to increase based on how much their overall went up, which means that your $6.99 book now might be $7.23, which is just an odd number, and it's going to look odd to people. And, you know, you're making more money, you're making the same amount of money, but you're going to get less sales because that's just an odd number. It doesn't feel natural.
Yeah.
And so people are going to pass by it. And so that's just a a quick thing that as soon as I looked at it, I was like, wait, no, that's not going to work. And so it seems easy. It goes back to the whole thing, if it seems too easy, then you probably shouldn't do it. That's what
Maybe
it was.
not. That's true.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people have a big backlog of books.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's not realistic necessarily to think that you can go in and up the price in every book.
Yeah.
But start with the ones that are selling, and see if you can adjust those and if it makes sense for your business and for your competition. If you're going to be like drastically higher than everybody else, then maybe not. But and then you can do a couple a day or a couple a month or whatever, depending on your backlog, and then other ones just leave as they are. If they've never sold any, then what's the sense in taking more time? You already took time in creating it. Why take more time in changing the price if you're not getting any sales anyway?
That's right. I mean, I think that with my books, like I said, I didn't increase the price of all of them. I've got about 700 odd books. And I think the most I probably changed and made a bit higher, it wouldn't have come up to 100 books probably, because so that's 600 books that I didn't change the price on.
Right.
And they're just not all my books sell. I say that to people, about 20 to 30% of my books sell. And that's how it is with everything, really. And I'm sure that's the case with people who have thousands of books, only a smaller percentage of that sells. So, yeah, I'm glad I didn't click that button that adjusted all the prices at once, because I felt that it wasn't necessary to do all of them. That's the only reason. So, but obviously Amazon was had the foresight to include that, because they must have thought there must be a lot of people with a lot of books, and so I think it kind of made me feel that they acknowledged the fact that people have hundreds of books, low content books. Yeah.
I'm just, and I wish we could find a way to make this into an episode too, but I could name one in particular issue that I have with Amazon when it comes to the no content, low content books, is that I don't think, and you kind of touched on this earlier, is it's that it shouldn't be in with books. It should be in the stationery.
That's it.
It's really that simple. It should be its own category, because you're not competing with. It's not fair for you to write a journal and it's in the same marketplace as a 75,000 word, novel. And it's just, it's not the same. It's not the same niche. It's not the same. I mean, it wouldn't be the same if you were in a physical store. If you're in a physical store, you'd have books here and you'd have stationery over here.
Exactly.
So, but again, we can find a way to work that into another episode.
True.
But that's, I think the biggest takeaway is, for me at least, when it comes to pricing, is don't underestimate the value that you put into your product, because if you underestimate it and you devalue it, how is your buyer going to value it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point.
All right. Well, this has been another great Mastermind area. Once again, a huge thank you to all our listeners and viewers who came to tag along. If you enjoyed today's Mastermind, please consider following or subscribing to the podcast, and maybe even leaving us a review and let us know what you thought. Until next week, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Colby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.